Premier League predictions time. Look, I could come up with a witty intro to this one, but I'm not going to. La Liga Barclaycard has returned, and we have 10 football matches to watch every week instead of seeing our families working or being useful to society in any way. My contribution to this planet is to talk about what might happen, even though we could all just wait for a week and find out, mostly so people click on it. I've also added a prediction at the end, so people can learn from my elite football brain. It starts on Friday at 8 as Manchester United host Fulham, so it's an interesting one to start. United keep on outdating my videos by making new signings, and there are two big ones as well as a big sale. Defenders Matthias de Ligt and Noussair Mazraoui come in from Bayern for undisclosed sums, while defender Aaron Wan-Bissaka goes to West Ham for another undisclosed fee, reported to be £15 million. What the hell is this? Two very sensible signings from the Red Devils? No. It can't be. At least I have an excuse if they get top 4 now after I'd predicted them to miss out to Spurs. The thing is, I still think the United circus will break these good but somewhat inconsistent players, because there is nary a talent in world football that has shown up at Carrington and lasted a year still being loved. Bruno Fernandes got 6 months before he was declared a fraud, who relies on penalties and COVID to do well, and he's obviously the best player for them. Of course, this is a preview about United versus Fulham specifically, and I'm not sure these guys will feature from the start. Let's look at the lineup for Man U's last game, the Community Shield draw and defeat on penalties with Manchester City at Wembley. They played a 4-3-3 with Onana in goal, Dalot, Maguire, Evans and Martinez in the back four, Mount, Casemiro and Mainoo as the midfield three, with Diallo and Rashford on the wings, and Captain Fernandes up front. McTominay, Collier, Garnacho and Pellistri came on the hour mark for Maguire, Mount, Mainoo and Diallo. And Sancho also came on for Rashford late on, while Bayern, Eriksen, Xerxes and Antony were unused. Garnacho scored a late goal for United. Silva scored a later one. On penalties, it looks like they were going to win when Silva missed his and Fernandes, Dalot and Garnacho scored, but Sancho missed his. Casemiro sent it to sudden death, with McTominay and Martinez scoring, while Evans missed his to lose them the trophy. The more I look at this, I think, ew, why is Martinez at left-back? Fernandes up front? The answer, injuries. Luke Shaw has managed to pick up another injury, while Lenny Yoro also won't be playing, nor will Rasmus Højlund. Tyrell Malacia is still out, Will Fish is also out, while Victor Lindelof is 50-50, as is Harry Maguire, who picked up a knock. That's really not good for them. But surely they have a more sensible lineup than that for this game. Martinez can play at left-back, but it's not his position. He may be there for a fair bit while Shaw and Malacia come back, especially now De Ligt is competing with him for the centre-back spot. On the other hand, now Mazraoui is here, maybe Dalot can come to the left. McTominay will not want to sit on the bench, while it is doubtful that Diallo will start games over Garnacho, and it'll be interesting to see what role is planned for Xerxes. Now, there isn't as much to talk about with Fulham. They've only loaned out striker Ollie Sanderson to Bradford, which doesn't really affect my opinion on them. Their last game was in a 2-0 friendly win over Hoffenheim, with Smith Rowe and Traoré scoring either side of the break. Their 11 was apparently a 4-2-3-1, with Leno in goal, Tete, Diop, Bassi and Robinson in the back four, Smith Rowe and Lukic in holding midfield, and Iwobi, Pereira and Traoré behind Muniz. I don't believe that for a second. Smith Rowe in holding midfield. Have a day off. Castagna, Suenza, Kearney and Jimenez came on late for Tete, Diop, Smith Rowe and Muniz. King and Godot came on for Pereira and Traoré even later. Bender, Borto, De Fogaroles, Araujo, Asenga, Sessegnon, Reed, Piazziti, Wilson and Stansfield were unused. Fulham are basically injury-free, but that 11 may need a bit of time to gel before they get going. Emil Smith Rowe has sent fans buzzing with his performances in pre-season, but will Man U give him the same opportunities? Probably not. The new defence is obviously a downgrade on that from last season, but if United give them an inch, they may take a mile. Sorry, under the current laws of the game, that's if United give them 2.54 centimetres, they will take 1.161 kilometres. The team they use seems much more like the actual one they will use compared to Man U's. If I was to pick the 11, it would look something pretty much like that. Fulham opened by getting a draw against Liverpool 2 seasons ago, and it harks the beginning of a horror season for the Reds, which is why they had Thursday night trips last season. Therefore, this game is a good way to measure the Red Devils. I think they might not have enough, but I'll decide in favour of them at home and say 2-1. Just. On Saturday at 12:30, Ipswich host Liverpool. Will the hipsters be made to eat their words, or will Liverpool let the country down and subject us to another week of infographics about Kieran McKenna? Ipswich's last game was a 1-0 win over Nice. Their 11 was a 4-2-3-1 with Muric in goal, a back four of Twanzebe, Edmondson, Burgess and Davies. Captain Morsey was in the hole with Luongo, while Johnson, Hutchinson and Harness played behind Delap. Nice missed a penalty before half-time, while Twanzebe scored the only goal in the second half. Townsend, Wolfenden, Ladapo, Greaves, Chaplin, Taylor and Burns all came on after about an hour for Davis, Edmondson, Delap, Burgess, Hutchinson, Longer and Twanzebe, while Al-Hamadi came on for Harness with 15 to go. Alzate, Ayinde, Carr, Donasian, Foyo, Slicker and Walton staying on the bench. Donasian may not be fit enough. Cameron Humphreys is also a doubt, with Nathan Broadhead, George Hurst and Harry Clark being big misses. Look, they surprise people in the Championship, but it is very unlikely that they can just keep on winning in the Premier League. They'll have to get used to suffering for points, but there's no reason their players can't be taught to do that. That injury list is pretty cruel, though. I think the lineup against Nice is about right with what they've currently got, and something like that will start against the Reds. Liverpool drew their last friendly 0-0 with Las Palmas. Their 11 was a 4-3-3 with Kelleher in goal, a back four of Bradley, Canate, Phillips and Captain Robertson. Elliott, Endo and Jones were the midfield three, with Doak, Nunez and Hakpo the front three. Elliott was booked early on. Scanlon came on for Robertson after an hour, with Morton, Blair and Nallo following soon after for Hakpo, Nunez and Phillips. Davies, Gordon and Vandenberg were unused. I know what you're thinking. What the hell is this? But to be fair, they played 2 games in one day. You're already bored of me reading out players' names, so I'll whiz through the other 11. Alisson, Alexander-Arnold, Konsar, Van Dijk, Simicas, Sobersloy, Gravenberg, McAllister, Salah, Jota, Diaz. That's more like it. But if it really is just first 11 in that game, which by the way was a 4-1 win over Sevilla, and second 11 in the second, does that mean Simicas is preferred over Robertson and Konsar over Canate, and for that matter Gomez? Is Nunez also going to have to work to get into Arne Slot's plans? There's no reason another manager doesn't want to shake it up, to be fair. Sobersloy earned a knock in pre-season, but seems fine, while Bobby Clark is out. The real challenge for Slot is finding a system that works and quick. Can you imagine what people will say and think if they don't get 3 points convincingly against Ipswich, and rightly so? I don't think they'll shine, to be honest, but I'll give them the 3 points. 2-0 Liverpool. 4 games at 3, starting with Arsenal against Wolves. Arsenal are good at 3 o'clock games, usually because it's against someone a bit rubbish at home because the TV companies don't want to waste their maximum quota of games from the big teams they show. Since the preview video, Carl Hein has been loaned to Real Valladolid. They won their last game, the Emirates Cup, 2-0 against Lyon, a 4-3-3 with Raya in goal, a back four of White, Saliba, Gabriel and Zinchenko, a midfield three of Captain Ødegaard, Partey and Rice, and a front three of Saka, Havertz and Martinelli. The goals came from Saliba and Gabriel, while Jesus and Calafiori came on for Rice and Zinchenko with 25 minutes to go. And then with 15 left, Jorginho, Nelson, Ranieri, Kivior, Lewis Skelly and Trossard replaced Partey, Saka, Havertz, Saliba, Gabriel and Martinelli. Heavens, Nichols and Ketia, Ramsdale and Setford were unused. So Arsenal, to most of the country pretentious, but also secretly rooted for, simply because they're not City and the only team that might beat them. Seeing that, it's not happening. Mikel Arteta may want to introduce Calafiori in for Zinchenko. We'll see how that develops. While Martinelli's place will be more and more in doubt for Trossard. Still, Arteta probably won't make too many changes. Saka gets double marks, which means it's hard for them, but it unlocks Havertz. Martinelli often gets unleashed on the break, but he's not what he used to be from one-on-ones and needs to find his confidence. Declan Rice showed worrying form at Euro 2024. Arsenal fans will hope he plays better in red than he did in white. 2 assists in that game, both from corners, will help people's expectations. But despite all these problems, their 11 is still really good, and their defence is amazing. Their midfield is really good as well. Arsenal fans may want another signing, but this team should be good enough to beat Wolves. Yuri and Timber has had a minor injury and may be back, while Takehiro Tomiyasu and Kieran Tierney are out for longer. As for Wolves, they also have a loan update, as left-back Pedro Bueno has gone to Feyenoord. Anyway, their last friendly was a 1-0 loss at home to Rayo Vallecano. They played a 3-5-2 with Sarr in goal, Doherty, Totti and Mosquera in defence, Rodrigo Gomes, João Gomes, Sarabia, Lemina and Ait Nouri as the 5, with Larson and Hwang the front 2. After Rayo's first half goal, subs came in the second, with Bellegarde, Gedge and Doyle on for Sarabia, Larson and Lamina with 25 to go, Lima on for Doherty with 20 to go, Chiquinho on for Joao Gomes with 10, and Semedo on for Aït-Nouri with 5. Bueno, Dawson and King were unused, and now Bueno's off to the Netherlands. Semedo is suspended after getting sent off in the last game of last season, while Larson and Lamina apparently picked up knocks, although who knows if Gary O'Neill is telling the truth. If he is, they are not looking good up front because Enzo Gonzalez, Daniel Pedence, Leon Chewone and Mateus Cunha are all big doubts. With the exception of the potential injuries, again the 11 looks about right for Saturday. Wolves will have a tough time scoring against the very stingy Gunners, but I do think they'll be solid and be a massive pain in the prefrontal cortex for Big Six teams this season. That said, I still think Arsenal will labour enough to break them down and win 2-0. Everton against Brighton is a battle of footballing styles. In fact, we can attach all sorts of cultural or even political values to Sean Dyche and Fabian Hürzeler. Why is Sean Dyche Brexit and Hürzeler woke? What's that got to do with football? At the same time, everyone knows what it means, and it makes sense to everyone. Curious. Sean Dyche's men drew their last friendly 1-1 at home to Roma. The 11 was a 4-3-3 with Pickford in goal, Captain Coleman, Tarkowski, O'Brien and Michalenko in the back four, Gay, Iregbenam and Decore in midfield, and Harrison, Calvert-Lewin and McNeil in the front three. In the first half, Coleman was replaced to Young due to injury, and Roma scored not long after. Calvert-Lewin equalised in the second half, and that'll be a popular goal scorer, as the Toffees can do with him firing. Dixon, Francis Krellin, Holgate, Morpie and Virginia were unused. Ndiaye and Lindstrom came on for Decore and McNeil minutes later, with Better and Armstrong on for Calvert-Lewin and Iroegbenam with 10 to go. So Coleman took a knock. Garner, Shamiti, Keane, Branthwaite and Patterson all weren't there. An interesting thing about Everton is Dele Alli is still there, but Everton have not actually given him a contract, so he's ineligible to play. Anyway, that's a pretty cruel injury list, but a couple of those may be fit for minutes or even a start. But the weird thing is that 11, even without those players, looks pretty good, actually. Even defence, where they're hammered. Tim Iregbenam must be favoured to start now, and if he is to fill Amadou Onana's shoes, he's going to have to work bloody hard. I also note the irony that I've been through 7 teams now, and the one with the weirdest 11 is the only one that was playing an actual official competitive game. Most teams that have had a friendly picked a team pretty close to that which will start this weekend. Overall, Sean Dyche knows this league, he's got a good squad, albeit a severely weakened one, and he's playing a newbie. But still, Fabian Hürzeler may be woke, but he's got a big football brain on him. He said in his press conference that he wants to challenge the establishment this season. Yeah, dude, the establishment, man. Look, that talk may work at St. Pauli, but Brighton have been in the Premier League establishment for a while now, thanks to the solid management of Graham Potter and Roberto De Zerbi. They even tasted Europa League football last season. I can only imagine that this means he wants to break back into Europe. But to do that, you have to win games like this regularly, which is very hard, but not impossible. Still, they won their last friendly 4-0 at home to Villarreal. 4-0. Wow. The 11 was a 3-4-3 with Steele in goal, Veltman, Von Hecker and Dunk the back three, Minter, Vifa, Milner and Barco as the midfield four, and Mitoma, Welbeck and Pedro the front three. Pedro and Welbeck scored in the first half, with Sarmiento and Webster on for Pedro and Dunk at half-time. Ayari, Hinshelwood and Baleba came on for Veltman, Vifa and Barco after an hour, and Minte scored with 25 left on the clock. Adingra came on for Mitoma 5 minutes later, and Kozia, Dubry and Moran on for Minter and Milner 5 more, with a Welbeck penalty finishing it off. O'Mahony then came on for Welbeck. Cahill, Osman and Rushworth were unused. Verbruggen being injured makes the choice for goal easy, while March, Gilmore, Ferguson, Enciso and Estupinian also missed this one. I will say the 11 looks right, but to be honest, I have no idea what Hürzeler will actually serve up. Sorry. Both of them are missing a fair few players, and important ones at that. He could outsmart Dyche. Brighton could win 4-0 for all I know, but I don't think so. In fact, I think they wouldn't score at all if Everton had their key defenders, but I do think their attack may find an opening, and I'll call it 1-0. But this is in equal parts fascinating and unpredictable. Newcastle take on Southampton in a battle between two forgotten teams. Newcastle are in equal parts feared and loathed after the PIF takeover, but suddenly people forgot they're meant to be a big club too now. And Southampton have been talked about far less than Leicester and especially Ipswich for the promoted clubs, although in some ways that may be a good thing. Anyway, Newcastle clinched the prestigious Cellar Cup with a 1-0 win over Brest. Their 11 was a 4-3-3 with Dubravka in goal, captain Trippier, Cher, Kelly and Lewis in the back four, Harrison, Guimaraes and Willock are the midfield three, with Almiron, Osula and Barnes the front three. They did play another game the day before, which I'll talk about in a second. In this one, Barnes got an early goal. Latrodimus and Sanusi came on for Dubravka and Harrison at half-time, with Hernes and Ashby replacing Osula and Trippier with 25 to go. Stanton replaced Cher in the late stages, with Munda replacing Willock in the even later stages. Emerson, Gillespie, Heffernan and Shahar were unused. Now, like with Liverpool, it looks like the main team came first in the 4-0 win over Girona. Pope, Livramento, Kraft, Byrne, Hall, Jamie Miley, Longstaff, Murphy, Joelinton, Gordon, Isak. At the same time, there are some really weird players to put in the second team. Is Bruno Guimaraes really going to be a bench warmer for Eddie Howe this season behind Jamie Miley? Surely not, which means that it will probably be a mix. There are some big games missing as well. Botman, Lewis Miley, Lascelles, Targett and Wilson all weren't there, while Tonali's suspension still hasn't quite expired. Fabian Cher picked up a knock in the last game, played on, but the club's coyness has caused a bit of a worry from Newcastle fans. Now, I actually think their quality is pretty unbelievable, and the fact that apart from Botman, they'll hardly even notice those injuries is amazing. If Cher is actually hurt, which I doubt, then they may have to sweat a bit, but until then, they should have more than enough for Southampton. It's actually a bit mouth-watering. Isak, Guimaraes, Livramento, Gordon. It is a veritable buffet of footballing quality, and unlike England and France Euro 2024, we can expect Eddie Howe to diet well and mix his delectable flair players with the less glamorous but equally important diet options that make up a healthy balance. But still, let's give the Saints their airtime. They do have a transfer update, the loaning of forward Dom Ballard to Blackpool, and the sale of midfielder Diamond Edwards to Port Vale for an undisclosed sum. They drew 0-0 with Getafe in their last friendly. It was an apparent 3-4-3 with McCarthy in goal, Bednarek, Harwood-Bellis and Stevens in defence, Sugawara, Smallbone, Downs and Walker-Peters as the midfield four, with Aribo, Armstrong and Brereton Diaz as the front three. Yeah, again, I don't believe that. In reality, it's more like a 5-3-2 with Aribo as the extra midfielder. Smallbone was booked before half-time. At the hour mark, Edozie and Taylor came on for Brereton, Diaz and Walker-Peters. Later on, Onuachu and Lumley replaced Bednarek and McCarthy, and with 10 to go, Dibley came on for Armstrong. Amoami, Aubrey, Edwards, Lees, Manning, Morrow and Wood were unused. I nearly fell asleep saying that. Look, I'm sorry, but this team just doesn't move me. It's not exciting. Ben Brereton Diaz's Pepsi advert was years ago, and even him, Harwood-Bellis and Sugawara can't wake me up from this slumber. You'll also note that Kamaldeen Sulemana is injured, and this is obviously going to be very close to their starting 11. In fact, barring injury, I'll be very surprised if they changed it at all. Anyway, obviously Newcastle have better players and a better manager, and they're at home, so they'll probably win. It is football, and Southampton will look to keep it tight and use pretty good wing-backs to unleash their pretty good strikers. But sorry, it's a 3-0 loss to you in my book. The final game to be not on television here for no reason is Nottingham Forest against Bournemouth, which, if my predictions are in the right ballpark, is a big game at the bottom. Forest are still enigmatic. They decided to travel to Greece for a friendly where they beat Olympiacos 4-3. It was a 4-2-3-1 with Sells in goal, Williams, Bolly, Murillo and Aina in the back four, Anderson and Songare in the engine room, Yates, Dominguez and Gibbs-White behind Wood. Yates scored early on, Olympiacos equalised, and then Wood put them back in front before half-time. After an hour, Hudson-Odoi, Elanga and Danilo came on for Songare, Gibbs-White and Dominguez. Or Yates scored soon after and Elanga soon after that. Amoniyi, Silva and Omobamidele came on for Wood, Anderson and Bolly before Olympiacos scored. Milenkovic, Moreira and Toffolo were next. Just before injury time, Olympiacos got another and Abbott replaced Yates. Only Turner was unused. That's a brilliant set of players in a way, and that was quite an interesting lineup. If Nuno Espirito Santo plans to go with it, as neither Awoniyi nor Elanga was starting, he's putting a lot of faith in Chris Wood, as well he should given that man's record. Forest are free of injuries, which with a big squad gives Espirito Santo a lot of options. I kind of like what he's going with though. Again, not putting in too many star attackers and waiting to play his cards. This is, as I said, a pretty big game for them. Bournemouth were tipped for relegation by me in what could be a stroke of genius or madness. If it's the latter, I'll excuse it by saying I didn't want all three promoted teams down. I did say they need to spend the Solanke money, and they have spent some of it, bringing in right back Julian Araujo for Barcelona for £8.5 million. I like that signing, to be honest. I'm not sure if Andoni Areola will put him straight in, but he'll do well. I've just discovered another excuse. How was I meant to know Araujo would come in? Alas, they played Barcelona's cross-Catalan rivals Girona in the last friendly, winning 3-2. It's a 4-2-3-1 with Travers in goal, Smith, Zabarnyi, Senesi and Kirkes in the back four, Christian Billing in the holding midfield, Scott, Kluivert and Sinisterra behind Semenyo. Looks all right, but no more. Kluivert scored an early penalty, but later in the first half, Girona equalised. Senesi came off just before half-time, allowing Huijsen to come on. Tavernier also came on for Billing at half-time. Girona scored soon after and Scott was booked. 10 minutes later, Ouattara and Aarons came on for Kluivert and Kirkes. Sinisterra scored with 20 minutes to go, while 5 minutes later there were mass subs. Jebison, Anthony Hill, Dennis Favre and Cook on. Sinisterra, Scott, Smith, Travers, Semenyo and Christioff. Jebison got a goal soon after and Bournemouth emerged winners. Iraola said Senesi probably would have continued if it was a league game, but there was some notable absence. Brooks, Neto, Adams and Unal. I think this is the type of game Chris Wood makes a big difference in, and it's quite nice to talk about a number 9 in that regard these days. 2-1 Forest. Back to games on the telly, and here's a tasty one at 5:30 on Saturday. West Ham versus Aston Villa. Right back Aaron Wan-Bissaka signed from Man United for £15 million for the Irons. That's a good opportunity to laugh at Man U, because they took a talent, spent triple that on him, made him look bad, and now he's at a place where he might actually succeed. They won the delightfully named Betway Cup on penalties after a 2-2 draw at home to Celta Vigo. A 4-5-1 with Areola in goal, Soufal, Kilman, Mavropanos and Emerson in the back four, Captain Bowen, Souček, Paquetá, Rodriguez and Kudus as the midfield five, and Antonio up front. That kind of looks more like a 4-3-3 to me, but what do I know? Bowen scored early, Celta equalised, and Paquetá made it 2-1 at the break. The half-time subs were Ward-Prowse, Aged, and Fabianski on for Rodriguez, Mavropanos and Areola, with Fulkrug on for Antonio at the hour mark. Followed by an equaliser, Earthy and Somerville on after that for Paquetá and Bowen, Cresswell on another 5 minutes later, and finally Guilherme on for Souček near the end. Cresswell scored a pen and Celta missed theirs, while Ward-Prowse and Souček also scored. Fulkrug missed his, but Aged scored to send it to sudden death. Kilman and Guilherme scored, and Celta finally missed, allowing them to win. Casey, Cornet, Herricks, Ings, Irving, Kodur and Potts were unused. This team is interesting, and in some ways a bit weird. Is Mikel Antonio really preferred to Fulkrug? Is Somerville also not a starter after big money was spent on him? Most of all, has Lopetegui spent long enough to know his best 11? Edson Alvarez is the only miss, a pretty significant one, but one they can cope with. With the loss of Lino Souza, a left-back who has been loaned to Bristol Rovers, Aston Villa continue their dream, although they did lose 2-0 to Dortmund away in the last friendly. It was a 4-3-3 with Martinez, Nedeljkovic, Konsa, Torres, Digne as the back four, McGinn, Onana, Tielemans, midfield three, Philogene, Rogers and Ramsey as the front three. Dortmund's goals came in the first half. After an hour, Gauchi, Martsen, Bogard, Barkley and Bailey came on for Martinez, Onana, Ramsey, Konsa and Digne. A bit later, Buendia, Moreno and Barrenetxea came on for Rogers, Tielemans and Philogene. Then Donker, Illing Jr., Svinkels and Wright were unused. I really hope that isn't their actual front three on Saturday. I also find it weird that if Ollie Watkins is fine, that he didn't play at all. I get that they want to keep him fresh after the Euros, but really, no football for a month. The thing is, he knows how to play football without too much practice. There was also no Robin Olsen, Boubacar Kamara and Tyrone Mings. This may be the start of Villa not getting things their own way. I'm going to have them held to a frustrating 1-1 draw. On to Sunday, and the 2 o'clock game is a bit less interesting, with Brentford playing Crystal Palace. But with me tipping Palace to be hot, I'd like to see if the Eagles will perform or let me down. As you know, when people get things wrong about football, it is never forgotten on the internet. Brentford's last friendly was technically a Brentford 11 against a Wolfsburg 11, which they won 2-1. I include it because Ben Mee and King Lewis Potter played, so it was a first-team game. But actually, most of the first team played in a 4-4 draw the day before against Wolfsburg. Flecken, Roslov, Collins, Pinnock, Ayan, Norgard, Jensen and Burmo, Janelt, Schade and Wissa were the 11 for that, which seems pretty accurate for Sunday. Ivan Toney was kept to the second half, and come on, he's Ivan Toney, he's playing. No Aaron Hickey, Rico Henry, Joshua Silva, or Igor Thiago, though. They're pretty big losses. I'm not sure about Brentford. Their players are used to this level by now. Playing at home to Crystal Palace won't scare them. At the same time, they're a bit tired in the Premier League last season, and I think they might be again this time. So, Oliver Glasner's Eagles. They drew their last friendly 1-1 at home to Nantes. The 11 are 3-4-2-1 with Henderson in nets, Richards, Anderson and Gay in defence, Munoz, Wharton, Hughes and Mitchell in midfield, and Kamada and Eze behind Edouard. This is an interesting fluid system with quality defenders at the back, giving a lot of space for the wing-backs and midfield. That team gives me excitement. It's the type that people will make graphics about, describing the streets not forgetting, like Southampton from 10 years ago. Nantes scored the only goal in the first half, and in the second, Klein came on for Munoz after 10 minutes. Kamada scored the equaliser soon after, and then a whole bunch of subs. Ayew, Lerma, Decore, Riyad, Sarr and Schlupp on for Kamada, Hughes, Wharton, Gay, Eze and Edouard. Ward also came on for Richards near the end. Hamada, Devaney, Holding, Matthews, Rodney and Umer were unused. Richards picked up an injury and therefore must be a doubt, with Decore and Franza also absent. But I don't care about that. 2-0 Palace, away from home. Bold, but I think it's happening. They have to be good now after I've salivated over them in public. Okay, here's a big one. Chelsea versus Manchester City at 4:30. A lot of people are looking forward to this, hoping that either Chelsea get humiliated or Man City drop points. We can't lose. Well, Chelsea fans can. They drew their last friendly, 1-1 against Inter, a 4-2-3-1 with Sanchez in goal, Gusto, Fofana, Colwell and Cucurella in the back four, Fernandez and Lavia in defensive midfield, and Madueke, Dewsbury Hall and Mudryk behind Guyu. Inter went in front in the first half with Colwell and Cucurella booked. Vega, Caicedo and Kunku and Palmer came on for Cucurella, Lavia, Dewsbury Hall and Madueke at half-time. 10 minutes later, Jackson replaced Guyu. With 20 to go, Adrabayo and Badiashile came on for Fofana and Colwell. Then later, Sterling came on for Mudryk and Ugochukwu for Gusto. Ugochukwu got a last-minute winner. Bettinelli, Chilwell, Chukwuemeka, Disasi and Jurgensen were all out. Just listening to me list all of those names, they're all expensive and paid handsomely. But do you really think, he's a game changer, about any of them? Apart from maybe Palmer. This starting 11 can't be the one he goes with. But what does he go with? Every manager has to solve a Rubik's Cube, but Enzo Maresca's has 18 colours and only 4 squares. Reece James, George Petrovic and Amari Kellyman being out will hurt, and I don't know what to say about James not being here. How many times can that happen? But everyone will concede if they do find it out, there's actually a lot of good players there. I'm sorry, it's fun to laugh, but it is true. It's just that finding out how to make them play well is something that every man who puts on that oddly coloured Chelsea puffer jacket with the initials on it seems impossible to do. As for City, we can actually talk about competitive football again with them because they won the Community Shield after that 1-1 draw with United at Wembley and a shootout. Their 4-2-3-1 was Ederson in goal, Lewis, Captain Diash, Akanji and Gvardiol in the back four, O'Reilly and Kovacic in defensive midfield, and Bob, McAtee and Doku behind Haaland as the front four. Nunge and Savinho came on for O'Reilly and Doku with an hour gone, and Nunge soon got booked. With 10 to go, Silva replaced McAtee, but this was soon followed by United's goal and a yellow for Silva. Silva got a late equaliser, and Ake and De Bruyne came on in injury time for Gvardiol and Bob. In the shootout, Silva missed a penalty, but De Bruyne, Haaland and Savinho scored, while Sancho missed to level things up. Ederson scored to send it to sudden death, where Nunge, Diash and Akanji scored, while Evans missed to win it for City. Ortega, Carlson, Caboret and Phillips were unused. It feels a bit weird that Pep Guardiola would use a so obviously suboptimal 11 in this game, but he builds systems around regular rotation rather than a set 11, so it doesn't matter as much. Every player's role is similar no matter who he's with. Obviously, De Bruyne will start, although it's unclear who else will. When the Euro finalists weren't there, Rodri is still not back after a knock in the final, and Grealish is also a doubt. Pep has the luxury of not rushing them back, but I think his side should do well. This will be a game that helps set the narrative for both these teams for a while. If Chelsea get a point, it will be evidence of potential, no matter what happens in the next few games. But I don't think they will. 3-1 City. One more game to go, and it's Monday night action at 8 as Leicester play Spurs. Blimey, Leicester have looked rough in pre-season. Their last game was a 3-0 loss away to Lens. Hermansen was in goal in a 4-4-2, with Justin, Okoli, Face and Christiansen in a back four. Decordova-Reid, Winks, and Ndidi and Chowdhury were the midfield four, and Fatawu and Daka were up front. Mavididi replaced Daka after an injury in the first half, while soon after Lens scored, and Ndidi got booked and Lens scored two more. 10 minutes, Pereira, Vestergaard, Mkhitaryan and Cannon came on for Decordova-Reid, Face, Christiansen and Fatawu, while late on, Samare and Alves replaced Chowdhury and Ndidi. Blimey. Everson, Nelson and Ward were unused. I don't even know what to say about this, to be honest. Daka's condition is unknown, and Cody and Vardy are both out. This lineup just doesn't look good right now. They are red-hot favourites to go down, although part of that is due to their financial situation, and I did have them stay up, which I'm starting to regret. I never said they'd be good, though. Steve Cooper has a job on his hands. Spurs lost their last friendly, the Visit Malta Cup, 3-2 at home to Bayern. A 4-3-3 with Vicario in goal, Porro, Dragosine, Davies and Spence in the back four, Sarr, Maddison and Bissouma as the midfield three, and Johnson, Kulusevski and Son as the front three. Kulusevski scored right at the start, but Bayern scored 15 minutes later, and again 15 minutes after that. Another 15 minutes saw Dragosine booked and Bayern scoring. There were a lot of changes at half-time, with Werner, Bentancur, Udogi, Skip, Bergvall, Romero, Gray and Von der Veen on for Johnson, Spence, Maddison, Porro, Davies, Dragosine, Sarr and Bissouma. Kulusevski scored at the hour mark, and soon after Moore replaced him. Lancashire came on for Son with 10 minutes to go and was booked in injury time. Austin, Devine, Donnelly, Gunter and Solomon were unused. Firstly, I don't see the wisdom in not playing the first team from the start if you're going to bring them on anyway. No Richarlison or Forster, and Solanke is actually a doubt, although his absence from Bournemouth pre-season may well be explained by an obvious other reason now. Look, I think Spurs are kind of a deluxe Chelsea in that they've actually done what Chelsea are trying to do correctly, but still have a bit of a hodgepodge of players. Their defence and goalie are really nice, but it's a Jenga tower that is a bit wobbly, but still upright when you look at the other side of the formation graphic. Still, look at that Leicester team. Come on, look at it. 4-0 Spurs. So here they are, all up on screen. Wow, what an absolute disgrace. I'm clearly biased against who you happen to support. Well, in some cases I am, but that's because I think the players aren't very good. Here they are, and remember the formations will be a bit weird in some cases, because in pre-season what the clubs publish, if they publish anything at all, can be odd, or even ordered by squad number or something like that. Still, that won't be a problem from the next game, and the Premier League's official website, which is actually quite good, is up. Put your predictions in the comments as well. You can check my channel for the whole Premier League predictions video. I'd like to hear the why a bit as well. Why you think what the scores are going to be. What you think. That's always interesting to me. And, well, I hope you're ready for the next one, and I hope you stay for that. Please press the subscribe button if you haven't already. It's been a long video. I apologise for that. And also press the like button, because you'll get notified when more videos are produced. Thank you for watching, everybody.